plant growth, cells, and tissues. All right. So we're going to talk about different, different cells, tissues, and stuff like that. Just like the basics in plants.
Right.
So first, we're going to start with the with talking about seeds. All right.
Mm-hmm.
Check over here. That's weird. All right. So we're going to be talking about different kinds of seeds. So we talked about angiosperms last time. Anyone remember what angiosperms were?
What was it?
Angiosperms. We talked about gymnosperms versus angiosperms. You remember?
Oh, brother,
Yeah,
I didn't see the last lesson.
These last ones. So angiosperms are basically flowering plants, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now within angiosperms, there's two different kinds of angiosperms. So one is called monocot, and one is called dicot. I don't know if anyone has ever heard these terms before, like monocots versus dicots.
Mm-hmm.
So these are two different kinds of angiosperms. So there are some differences, there's some similarities and differences between them in terms of their, leaf structure, flowers, number of petals on the flowers,
Oh, there you go. All right, I was just butter text on us.
different things like that, right? So there's some, different kinds of differences, right?
Mm.
But we're going to talk about, some of the similarities and differences between them as well as about seeds, right?
Mm-hmm.
So plants, they reproduce from seeds versus spores. So Freya, do you remember, like, what is the difference between a seed and a spore?
Spores are like transported through air and stuff.
Like that could be one difference. All right, Freya, what is the difference? Like in terms of the definition, right? What would be like kind of the difference?
I don't know, seeds are...
Not sure. Anyone over here? Yusuf, do you know, like, what would be the difference between a seed and a spore?
The way
So
they
the difference between a seed and a spore?
the spore comes like off of the leaves and stuff, but the seeds are inside.
Okay, very very good. So the main difference is that the seed, right, results from like a male and female gamete, combining and fertilizing, right? A spore is usually not that, right? Now, because of that, there are, Anas, you're correct. There are some differences.
So wait, a spore is reproduces asexually, is what you're saying?
Right. So because of that, like some of the things that Anas said is also true. Like a spore is just very tiny, right? We were looking at the underside of a fern plants, right? Just like kind of like dust-like things, right? Whereas seed is usually something that you can kind of see as like something big, right? And the reason is because the seed contains it's not just like kind of like one cell or like just like smaller group of cells. It includes like some different tissues in there. It includes like the baby leaf, includes some nutrition for the plant to grow. It can include kind of like the beginning of the root system, stuff like that. So that's why a seed is a little bit more complex compared to a spore. Now a seed doesn't, when you put it into the ground, it can sense the surroundings. It senses the water, the temperature, the pH, right? If it's acidic versus basic, they say like, some plants you want to plant in acidic soil, other plants they like more like alkaline soil, stuff like that. So the seed can sense the surroundings and it germinates or comes out. The plant comes out when it's the right conditions. All right.
Brother, this is 6.6, right?
Yeah, it's 6.6.
Yeah, 6.6.
Okay.
Now over here, there's some differences between dicots and monocots. So these are both flowering plants, but within dicots and monocots, there are some differences, right? So first of all, so the term dicot and monocot. So mono means one, di means two, right? So the monocot has one cotyledon. See this term at the very bottom, cotyledon? So this is basically like the leaf. This is basically like one of the first leaves of the plant. So monocot, it produces like basically one leaf in the beginning. Dicot comes out with two leaves. Okay? Another thing is that, so the monocot, right, the food supply for the monocot is separate from the actual leaf. Okay, and that is called endosperm. So you notice here in the bottom, you see this thing that says endosperm, right? It doesn't mention that in the top, right? See, it doesn't. There's no endosperm here. So the endosperm kind of is the food source for the embryo. All right. So in the monocot, it's separate. Now in the dicot, notice
What is the endosperm? Is it where the
it's basically just like the food supply, like whatever it is, like starch or whatever it is.
Okay,
It's basically like the
that's just
yeah.
basically what it is.
So like
Alright.
like because in the beginning, right, the embryo plant, it doesn't have like a nice root system to go out and get food. It needs a little bit of starter food to begin. Right?
Okay, I see what you're saying. Yeah. Doesn't
So-
have any roots to be able to suck nutrients in from the soil.
Right. Now the dicot, it also has nutrition. Does anyone know where in the dicot the nutrition is? It doesn't have an endosperm, but like the beginning nutrition that the plant might need is somewhere else. Can anyone take a look at the picture and figure out where do you think that could be?
Cotyledon.
Cotyledon, right? Notice so they just colored it the same, right? Notice it's like the brown color at the bottom for the endosperm. Here, so in the dicot, the nutrition that it needs is built within those first leaves. All right?
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
Right? So the nutrition is not like in like a separate place. The nutrition is within the leaf. Right? So the first leaves are going to be like a little bit thicker than usual. And the reason is that within there they have the energy stored within them. All right? Another thing that they mention here is that there's like a seed coat, right? So you obviously have to protect, the seeds. So there's going to be like a seed coat that protects it from drying out and protects, all of this here. Right? Now we also have something called hypocotyl. This is the top of the root. So I don't think it really shows that good of a picture here. If you kind of go down to this picture here, it shows it a little bit over here, that in a dicot, here's kind of like the hypocotyl. It's like basically like the top portion of the root, and the radicle is kind of the beginnings of the actual root, right? So the hypocotyl, this is basically like the top portion of the root, right? And notice here on the right, it shows you. Look at the monocot; it comes out with just one leaf. The dicot comes out with two leaves.
2 leaves, yeah. Brother, what is a shoot? It says like the epicotyl says will become shoot, leaves, and stems.
Right.
What is
Right. So
shoot means leaves
What
and stems?
comes out of the seed, like
okay.
so as the seed cone comes out,
Right.
Okay.
like an egg.
right. So right, exactly right. So in like a plant, you have the root system below the ground and the shoot system above the ground.
Okay, I see.
Right. So it's
And the I don't know how to pronounce that, brother.
cotyledon.
It's a seed leaf.
Right. So that's basically like each of these is like a cotyledon. Like these leaves.
Okay.
They used to be the cotyledons inside the seeds.
But now they're like outside and they've grown.
Right now they're outside. Right.
Right.
So just as a this shows a few things here as well. Right, between the dicot seed and the monocot seed. So some of these they didn't talk about, but some of the important ones are the second one here. So in dicot, there's 2 cotyledons. That's why it comes out with 2 leaves. In a monocot, there's just 1. That's what comes out with 1 leaf. Right. In a monocot, you have the endosperm. That's separate food source. In the dicot, there's not a separate food source called the endosperm. The food source is within those 2 cotyledons. So it's same purpose, but the food source is within those initial leaves. All right. So these 2 middle ones here, these 2 in the middle, these are the important points to remember. All right. So this picture over here is just kind of mentioning that, look, when a seed germinates, it needs essential conditions. It can sense the conditions around it. It senses how much water, oxygen, temperature, what is the pH. It senses all this, and it comes out when all these things are present, right? So there's always differences, right? It says here some seeds need full light and warm soil, while others need complete darkness, right? So different seeds need different things. They sense the right conditions. Now there are some seeds that actually come out only when there's like a fire. Like, have you heard of like certain kinds of like pine trees and like things that produce cones. When there's a wildfire that comes through, then that opens up the cones
Really?
and the seeds.
That's
Yeah, I
cool.
don't remember which plants exactly, but that's what they say. Like sometimes when there's
I mean,
wildfires out west, then they see a whole bunch of new baby trees start to come out.
that's cool. I've heard like freezing, like at freezing temperatures, there are certain plants that grow like as and then eventually I think they become trees. I forgot the name of one of them, but I was reading about that a
Right.
while ago. It's
Yeah,
pretty
that's-
cool.
yeah, I don't know have specific examples for these ones here, but
That's
some
cool. Fire.
so some plants the seeds they don't germinate until certain of these conditions appear.
Yeah. Hmm.
All right, so this is just going to show you kind of the difference between monocot and dicot germination. Right, so this right here is a monocot. Right, so within this you can have basically one leaf. Right, so they're showing like after like a couple leaves have come out, in the beginning you can have one leaf. Right, so there are different kinds of enzymes that activate growth within the seed from one. Right, so the seed starts to grow. Right, two, the embryo of the seed begins to grow using its endosperm for energy, right? So notice there's no roots outside yet, right? And number two, there's no roots outside yet. So it just starts to use up that endosperm energy, right?
Hmm.
Three, the seed coat bursts open and the root tip emerges, right? So the seed coat is going to start to, crack open as this plant embryo starts to grow and grow,
Hmm.
right? Four, the leaf shoot shoots up.
The leaf sheath.
Oh, sorry, the leaf sheath shoots up as the root tip grows deeper into the soil. So one leaf starts to come out here, and the root tip starts to grow to go out here into the soil.
Hmm.
And then when it senses that there's light around here, then the leaves actually come out of the leaf sheath. All right.
Oh.
So
So basically, the leaves that shoot out, basically, they need something to be activated, right? It's like
right,
they sense that there's sunlight and then they come out,
correct.
right?
Right.
I thought it was like they need to grow. There's no leaves inside, like initially.
So there is like a leaf inside there.
Yeah, there's always a leaf inside, right?
Right.
Right. I see.
Right. All right, let's go over the dicot first before we come back to this one. All right, so this is dicot germination. Now remember, in dicot, the endosperm is within the cotyledon, right? So look at the difference in terms of how the
Wait,
how
brother.
Mhm.
Brother, hold up. We just read dicot. Isn't the dicot the
No,
one where?
no, this is
the-
monocot.
Oh, okay. That one's white.
Right.
Okay, I was
Yeah.
confused because I remember we were reading monocot has what's
Yeah.
it called? The endosperm, and the dicot doesn't.
Right.
This
So-
part
right.
showed a difference. I was
So
confused for a bit.
notice here in the monocot, you see the seed coat and the kind of like the main part of the seed stays below the ground, right? It stays below the ground.
Yeah.
Now, if you take a look at this one, Anas, what kind of difference do you notice? Does the seed coat and like the main part of the seed that we think of as the seed, does that stay below the ground, or what happens?
No, it gets like shot out into the open.
All right, so it comes out here and from 3 to 4. Now it's out here in the open. So Friha, why do you think that is? Like, what's like the reason that there's that kind of difference? Right, you see at 4, like kind of like what you thought of as a seed comes out of the ground. Right, below you just have like the roots. There's no, what happened to like the seed and the seed coat and that stuff? It comes out of the ground. Why do you think that's the case?
Um, because
Oh, sure. Any ideas, right? So it has something to do with like where the nutrition is stored. Yusuf, what do you think?
What was the question, brother?
So like, why is it that the seed coat and everything comes out of the ground here?
I think it's because of the positioning of the plant, the root and everything inside the seed,
Mhm.
right? Because it's like up here at the top,
Mhm.
so it kind of shoots out from the side,
Mhm.
and then the where the leaves are, they need to like come out, vertically,
Right.
So the leaves sort of pull the seed up with them when they come out vertically.
Right. So remember in this case in the dicot, the leaves, those two initial leaves, the cotyledons, right? Those are leaves. They have the nutrition within them. They have the bulk of the seed within them. So when those two leaves come out, they're basically bringing the whole seed out with them
Oh, because it's already attached inside.
because it's all attached, right? It's not that the main part of the seed that provides nutrition is separate from the leaves, like in a monocot. Here,
So they still have an endosperm, but it's just inside them, right?
right? They do have an endosperm, but it's technically it's not different, which is why sometimes they don't label it as endosperm. Right? So the endosperm is basically part of the leaf. So in the beginning, you're going to have two of those leaves that come out, right? And they're going to bring kind of like the seed coat and everything with them, right? So that's kind of like the main difference, right? So let's go through it again. So one, when conditions are right, again, at one, the seed is sensing its surroundings. This is the right time. If it's the right time, it starts to grow, right? Number two, the tip of the roots start to come out, right? The tip of the roots start to come out and they start to grow, right? So the roots start to grow and they anchor the leaf. So in this case, the roots have to, anchor the plant well, because as it grows, the seed coat is going to come out. When the leaves come out of the ground, the seed coat is going to come out of the ground as well. It's going to take the seed cotyledons with it, because those are the initial leaves, right? And then you can have two initial leaves that emerge from the cotyledon, and the seed coat is going to either fall off or something's going to happen to it. Right? So that's kind of the main difference to know. In monocot, this whole seed coat thing kind of stays below the ground. In a dicot, it gets pulled out of the ground because the nutrition is part of the leaf. So when the leaves come out, it's going to bring the whole thing with it. Right?
I see.
Any questions on this difference? This is like a very important difference. Any questions on that?
No.
Um.
No? Okay. All right. So I just put a slide in here, so just shows you.
Wait, brother,
again-
can you go back to that slide with just to slide 8 one more time? I just wanna
This one?
look at the slide 8. No, slide 8. 8. I just want to read two leaves emerge from between the cotyledons. It says two leaves emerge from between the cotyledons, right?
Right.
But aren't the leaves cotyledons, or that's just the portion where the leaves are inside the seed?
Two leaves emerge from between. I think this must be like two additional leaves.
Oh, okay.
I think
Yeah,
those are
because
two-
that makes not
Yeah.
too much sense.
So two leaves emerge from between the cotyledons. I don't know if they're talking about so the cotyledon itself is a leaf.
That's what I'm
I don't
saying.
know if I don't know if they're mentioning that there's two additional ones coming out. Two leaves emerge.
Oh, alright.
All right, I'll check on that one at the end. All right.
Yeah.
All right, let's review this page over here. So you have monocot versus dicot. So monocots, again, they only have one seed leaf inside the seed coat, right? It is often a thin leaf, right? Because remember, it does not have the endosperm within its leaf, so it's going to be a thin leaf. Dicots have two seed leaves inside the seed coat, and they are usually rounded and fat because they contain the endosperm to feed the plant. So they're going to have like thicker leaves, right? So during germination, when the monocot germinates, it produces a single leaf. Remember, monocot comes out with one leaf.
Yeah.
It is usually long and narrow like the adult leaf, right? When a dicot germinates, it produces two seed leaves. They contain the food for the new plant, so they are usually fatter than the true leaves. The first true leaves are often a different shape. So I think I think what they're showing here is that these two here, they're saying there must be two true leaves that come out over here.
Out of the cotyledons, right?
Right. So the initial ones are called seed leaves.
Yeah, and then the other ones are called true leaves.
True, and these ones that are the actual shape of the adult plant are called true leaves.
Uh-huh.
Right. So I think they're talking about two separate additional leaves that are coming out. All right. So this one over here again. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I think that's correct. So let's take a look at this one. So this one right here is a dicot. So notice, right, in the beginning, it's kind of bringing the seed out with it. See how it's bringing the seeds out with it? Right? So then down here at the bottom, you have these two seed leaves that remain. These are the seed leaves right here at the bottom. And then these ones at the top are kind of like the true leaves. You see these other ones that are larger and look more like regular leaves? Those are the true leaves. Those are the actual adult type of leaves. Right?
So these two on the middle picture of the leaf
Right.
or of the plant. Those two are the cotyl, whatever they're called,
Yeah,
the
so
the
see-
seed leaves. I mean,
Right. So these are seed leaves. The cotyledons, these
Yeah,
are seed
cotyledons.
leaves. Seed leaves.
Wait, these are seed leaves?
Right. So these are leaves, but you see the outer part of the seed is like stuck to them.
Well, why are they? Oh, okay, you can't see them. All right, but because I was wondering why are they brown?
Right. Yeah, I think that's because that's the seed coat that's also coming along with them.
Yeah,
Right. And then these
those
two,
are actually the cotyledons, right?
Right. and these two
Wait,
other
I'm
ones are like
confused.
the
Hold
true
up, brother.
leaves.
Look. In the first picture, it says first leaves, the two,
Right. So
and then it shows the cotyledon.
right. So those are separate. The first leaves are two additional leaves apart from the cotyledon leaves.
So then, how are those seeds not seed leaves?
Uh,
How are those leaves
right.
not seed?
So these leaves here are not attached to the cotyledon or anything like that.
Oh, they're just separate.
Those are
So they're
separate.
true leaves then? Are they true leaves?
Yeah, let's say those are true leaves.
Alright,
These are these large leaves at the top here.
Yeah, they're the same as these large leaves.
Right.
And then multiple more leaves keep going out from the
Right.
stem.
All right. So again, this over here just showing, the same thing. Again, remember monocot comes out with one leaf, dicot comes out with two leaves. Right. All right. So let's take a look at different kinds of plant cells and tissues. All right. So within plants, there's basically three main kinds of tissues that we're going to talk about. You have dermal tissue. All right. So anyone like know what is like a dermatologist or anything like that? What does this word dermal mean? Anyone know?
It.
Skin.
So skin, right? So dermal tissue is going to be like something on the outside that's going to protect the plant or the animal or whatever it is, right? So it has dermal tissue. That's usually like protection on the outside. It has ground tissue. Ground tissue is a place where like a lot of the work of the plant for growth and stuff like that is done. It has tissue that grows. It has tissue for storage. Like suppose the plant makes a lot of food, it stores the sugar and nutrition in the ground tissue, stuff like that. All right. Vascular tissue. I think anyone know what vascular tissue is? What would be vascular tissue? What is that? What do you think that does? Anyone
The
know
vascular tissue?
anyone know like cardiovascular, something like that?
Yeah. Oh, like veins? Something to do with veins, I
Right.
guess.
So transportation of things, right? So vascular tissue, just like the vascular, like veins and arteries transport blood, right? So vascular tissue in plants, it also transports water, minerals, nutrition, stuff like that, right? So vascular tissue is for transport, right? So let's take a look at first dermal tissue. So dermal tissue is protection, right? So it basically lines the outside of the plant. So it protects the plant from water loss, right? And it covers most plant parts with a single layer of cells, almost like a skin, right? So these cells excrete a waxy cuticle. So we talked about last time, like on leaves, right? It's like, on the outside, it's kind of plasticky, right? Kind of waxy or plasticky. So that's called the cuticle. That protects the plant from losing a lot of water, right?
It covers most plant parts with a single layer of cells, almost like a skin.
Right. So this is dermal.
These cells excrete a waxy. What's a cuticle again?
So cuticle is like a waxy kind of substance that kind of just covers the plant leaf to protect it from
The
losing
bottom.
water.
Oh, so it's sort of like how oil works, right? Because oil and water don't
Yeah,
don't
kind
mix, right? So it kind of like keeps the water from
something
going
like-
outside,
Something
keeps it
like that.
inside.
Obviously, it's not so much oily; it's more like wax.
Yeah, but like
Right.
that's how it prevents it.
Right. So
Because like the water can't like penetrate the wax,
Right.
so it stays inside, right?
So like when you go to the store, some kinds of vegetables and fruits, they cover
They cover them with wax.
with them wax, right?
Yeah,
So they don't dry out.
yeah.
Right. So that's the same kind of idea. Right?
Oh, okay.
So it says it consists of parenchyma cells, right? So parenchyma cells differentiate or turn into many different kinds of cells, right? So dermal cells also have, or they are made of these cells called parenchyma cells. So we're going to see this word again. Right? This picture just showing the same thing. So dermal tissue covers the whole plant, right? And the all parts of the young plant are covered by epidermis, which is a single layer or multi-layer of cells, right? All right, now we have ground tissue. So ground tissue kind of like just does like a lot of different things, right? So it does most of the metabolic activity of the plant. So that includes photosynthesis, storage, and support. So all these different kinds of things ground tissue does. So if you're trying to find out what kind of tissue does like a lot of different things, it's going to be ground tissue, right? So it has different kinds of tissues that make up ground tissue. So it has parenchyma cells, which can differentiate into a lot of different kinds of things, but also they have very specialized cells as well. So they have certain kinds of things called collenchyma cells and sclerenchyma cells, right? So these are important for support, right? So what is the difference between collenchyma cells and sclerenchyma cells? Okay, so first of all, both of them are important for support. Like, why does a plant stand up and not just like fall down on the ground?
Because of the cell wall, right?
Because of these two kinds of cells, collenchyma and sclerenchyma. Right? So collenchyma cells have thicker cell walls and are responsible for support of herbaceous plants. Okay, so keep that in mind, herbaceous plants. Second, sclerenchyma cells die at maturity and provide structural support for woody plants. So both of them are strong cells that help a plant to stand up. But Anis, what is the difference? What does this mean that these are for herbaceous plants and these are for woody plants? What is the difference between
Herbaceous plants are like small plants like flowers and stuff.
Right. So like a woody plant would be like a tree, right? It's made of wood. Herbaceous plants are more like, like they stand up, but if you push them over, they're flexible, right?
Yeah.
You just kind of push them over and they're going to bend and they're going to come back. So that's kind of the difference. Predominantly in herbaceous plants, you're going to see this thing called collenchyma cells, right? Their cell walls are just thicker, so that way they can provide support, but they're not the same as sclerenchyma, which are very, very strong and are important in woody plants, right? So we're going to take a look at some of the different, a little bit more in detail over here. So we have parenchyma cells, right? These are kind of like usually undifferentiated, or they can differentiate into many different kinds of things, right? And some of the things they turn into are collenchyma and sclerenchyma, right? So collenchyma, right? This is a flexible support system, right? Whereas sclerenchyma is basically, just very, sclerenchyma. So collenchyma cells are still alive. That's also important. Collenchyma cells are alive, and so they're flexible. Sclerenchyma, they're dead, right? So in the beginning they're alive, but when they're performing their function, they're dead. They die, and just kind of like the outline of the cell is still left. And
Wait, hold up. Is this collenchyma or scleren?
Sclerenchyma. Right?
Okay.
So sclerenchyma is in woody plants. So what they do is they grow, and eventually they die.
Is that why wood is brown, brother?
Sorry?
Is that why wood is brown? Because they're dead.
Yeah. I guess so. It's probably that's probably one reason, but probably so they have something called lignins that strengthen it. So I guess that's the color of the lignin.
Oh, okay.
So sclerenchyma, what they do is they grow, all right, and then when they die, just the structure that they've left behind is there, but that cell itself is actually dead, okay, but the structure is there, and that provides the support. Does that make sense? All right. So collenchyma cells are still alive and they're flexible. Sclerenchyma, they're dead, and they're just they're not flexible.
All right, I see.
Okay. I think this kind of says the same kind of thing. All right, basically says the same kind of thing. This shows like a couple of pictures. All right. So at the top you see sclerenchyma. On the let's look at collenchyma first. So collenchyma cells also function as support, though they are living. So collenchyma is still living. Sclerenchyma, you see how sclerenchyma is like a little bit thicker? The outside of each cell is thicker, right? So sclerenchyma mainly consists of dead cells, and they have primary and secondary cell walls which provide support. So they have very thick,
so sclerenchyma have two cell walls, not one.
right? So, yeah. So I don't think I guess collenchyma does not have two cell walls, right? So they're just a lot thicker and they're dead, right? All right, and this is kind of showing the same, kind of thing. Sclerenchyma, right? They are a lot thicker than collenchyma, and collenchyma is still alive. You see, you see like nucleus and stuff like that in here, in collenchyma. See, it's like long nuclei. So these are still alive.
Oh, okay, those are nuclei.
Yeah, so they're still alive. Sclerenchyma is dead.
Oh, sclerenchyma are one of the reasons trees are brown, right? Because it's showing the
Yeah.
brown outline. I would assume. I don't know.
Yeah. So I guess the color of the lignin is brown.
Mm.
All right.
That's cool.
So now we have vascular tissue. So vascular tissue is of two types, xylem and phloem. So these are important for transportation. So now xylem, right, are also composed of dead cells. Okay. So xylem cells, they're basically dead and empty, and they're very thick cell walls. So what do? Basically what they do is they transport things up. Okay. Phloem can go up and down. Okay. So phloem can take things up or down. The xylem takes things just basically up. Okay. So what is the purpose of xylem? Xylem transports mostly like water and minerals that the plant has acquired from the soil up through the plant. That's what xylem does. Now what does phloem do? Phloem basically transports all kinds of organic molecules and food and stuff like that throughout the plant. So for example, let's suppose the plants, right? So water and nutrients have gone up to the plant, to the leaves, and the leaves are doing photosynthesis, right? So they're making glucose and turning things into sucrose and other kinds of things. And so once that's made, then that has to come back down, right, to feed the rest of the plant. So now the phloem brings all that stuff back down so that the whole plant can get food and stuff like that.
So xylem cells transfer. So xylem cells transfer water and ions,
Mhm.
and they're like dead. They're dead, just like the other
Correct.
sclerenchyma or whatever it was called.
Just like sclerenchyma, they are dead.
Yeah, and then phloem. It's pronounced phloem.
Yeah, phloem.
Phloem transports sugars and other organic compounds. So it's sort of like food.
Right, exactly right. So xylem is kind of like the raw ingredients.
Uh-huh.
And then, once the tree makes stuff, then that stuff goes to the phloem.
Oh, okay. And then the phloem transports that, like sucrose and whatever other stuff.
Yeah, okay, absolutely. All right. And this picture here just showing kind of the same thing. You have xylem and phloem, right? So you see xylem, right, transports things only up. You see the arrows pointing only up? But phloem can go up and down, up and down. All right? All right. So let's take a look at, a couple different, types of, systems. So we're going to look at roots and stems, right? All right. So we have the roots of a, so we talk about monocots versus dicots, right? So the roots of a plant, they're important for, bringing water and nutrients and stuff like that from the soils, right? So when you have a monocot, right, versus a dicot, there's differences in their roots, right? So in a monocot, their root system is basically going to be all stringy, and there's not going to be like one main root that goes through the plant, okay? So it's just all kind of like, it all just spreads out all over the place, okay? Now in a dicot, what's the difference is that you're going to have kind of one main root and then a lot of small roots coming off of it, right? Has anyone ever heard of something called a taproot?
A taproot?
Yeah, a taproot. Basically what it is
No.
like there's a plant has one main root. You'll see like down the center, like if you pull out a plant, right?
Uh-huh.
Through the center, there'll be like one main root,
Uh-huh.
right? One main root. And that main root right, has a lot of small roots coming off of it.
Yeah.
But you can notice that,
I've seen
okay, even though there's a lot of roots, you'll notice like, oh, there's one main thing going down the middle. Okay,
Yeah, I've seen that. I've seen
so
that.
that's dicot.
Like a potato type or
Um,
watermelon.
So the example that they give is a carrot. I don't know which specific other plants have that. I
I've
remember
seen it on a carrot. Yeah.
on the carrot, yeah. So
Yeah.
so the carrot itself is like a taproot, right? The carrot itself is part of the root. So now in a monocot, you're not going to find, you're not going to be able to identify, oh, this is like the one main thing. This is all going to just start spreading out into like a whole bunch of roots all over the place. So you're not going to be able to identify one main taproot. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
All right. So let's take a look at the difference between monocots and dicots in terms of their roots. All right. So both of them have an epidermis, right? So let's go to the next picture because this picture is not going to show as good. So over here we have monocots on the right and dicots on the left. Okay. So on the outside, remember we have the dermal tissue, the epidermis, right? Just for protection and stuff like that. Okay. Now, in the monocot, you have also something called an endodermis, right? That's not really present in a dicot. So the endodermis is kind of, you see this inner ring over here on the right?
On the right, this one, right? The one
Right.
surrounded by black.
Right. You see this like kind of dark, like dark purple or something like that ring? That's called the endodermis, right? That's
Mhm.
called the endodermis. So that's present in the monocot. So the endodermis is a one-cell thick layer that forms a boundary between the cortex and the vascular cylinder. So this out here is like the cortex, right? This out here is the cortex. And so the cortex is basically ground tissue. That's just kind of like where a lot of the metabolic activity happens. That's where energy is stored, stuff like that.
Uh-huh.
And then in the middle is the vascular bundle. There's a
So
vascular
that's
bundle.
like where the stuff sort of travels, like
Right,
everything,
that's where the stuff travels. Xylem and phloem tissues in here.
like the vein.
Right. Now, in the dicot, you see that there's like a small vascular bundle here on the left, and it forms an X kind of shape. Right? So this is one way to identify monocot versus dicots in terms of their roots. All right? So you have the monocot here on the left with its endodermis.
Mhm.
Dicot here doesn't have endodermis, but it has an X in the middle. So that's kind of, if you look at it, like you can identify it in those kinds of ways. All right?
Mhm.
See vascular cylinder.
Wait, brother, can you go back to that picture one more time? The number 23.
Yeah.
So the endodermis is just like a surrounding. Like, what is it exactly?
Yeah, so it's basically a layer surrounding the vascular bundle in the middle. Yeah, so,
Okay,
so in the
and
middle
then
is the
The
vascular.
xylem and phloem.
Right, so in the
Okay.
middle is the vascular tissue. On the outside is the ground tissue.
So the xylem is inside, right? The xylem and phloem are part of the
Right,
the stele or the vascular
right, the
line,
vascular, right? Because they're transportation.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Transportational tissues or whatever,
Mhm.
or cells.
Right. All right. So we're going to take a look at stems. All right. So let's take a look at the stems. So when you look at stems, you're going to notice monocot versus dicot is going to have completely different patterns. Right. So dicot is going to look like this one on the left, monocot on the right. So you see in monocot, you see the vascular bundles, right? The xylem and phloem. They're kind of randomly all over the place, right? In the monocot. They're kind of like pretty much like random all over the place throughout the stem. You take a stem, take a
What?
cross section, you're going to see these bundles all over the place.
Bundles of what?
Vascular bundles,
Oh, vascular bundles.
right? See these purple.
So like, are they like veins or just things traveling through
yeah,
the?
yeah. No, these are always xylem and phloem,
Oh, okay.
right? And then on the left, you see how the vascular bundles are kind of arranged in a circle on the outside when it comes to the dicots, right? It's all
Yeah.
arranged on the outside, right? So it's not just kind of all over the place randomly. They have certain arrangements like this. So when you see this, you can identify monocot versus dicot, right? I think there's another picture here, right? So this one on the right, notice that you have these like smaller vascular bundles all over the place. And then here on the left, you have the dicot. You see these like thick, bundles only on the outside, and you're not going to find the vascular bundles in the inside, right?
Mhm.
So this is monocot versus dicot. All right. So I think this is basically the same thing. I think these pictures are not as good, so I'm not just gonna skip. It's the same thing. It's just the pictures are not as good, so I just skip those.
Wait, brother. I have a question.
Mhm.
So does that mean the dicot came after the monocot? Because the dicot seems to be more like developed, I guess.
No, so I don't think so. I think they branched off. I don't know when they branched, like.
I mean, like in terms of organization, like you know how the phylum and the phloem and xylem are organized and stuff inside the
Right.
stem of the
I don't think
or the
necessarily.
stele of the thing.
I don't think necessarily. I don't know.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Okay.
I don't know exactly if like one developed before the other or something like that. Yeah, I'm not 100% sure. All right. So, okay. All right. So this is mentioning this is kind of like a random fact almost. So they were mentioning that. So you have palm trees, right? So saying that palm trees are monocots. So saying, don't palm trees have woody tissue? So because if you see a palm tree outside, right, saying that look, it looks like a tree doesn't have woody tissue, right, like sclerenchyma, right? Or we talk about sclerenchyma, right?
Mhm.
So doesn't a palm tree have woody tissue, right? You know, with sclerenchyma and all that. So it's saying no, palm trees rely on overlapping leaf bases, thickened and large cells, and prop roots to stay upright. So it's saying that even though some kinds of plants they seem like oh, this plant is like really tall and you can't bend it, it must be made of some kind of woody tissue, but it's saying that some of these plants, like palm trees, they have other ways of gaining of producing the same kind of support, right? Like if you have like a redwood tree or a pine tree, without that woody tissue, it's not going to be able to stand up that tall. It's
Yeah.
going to bend over, right? So it's saying, look, palm trees are also tall. They must have woody tissue. So it's saying that palm trees have found another way of doing the same
To
thing.
do it.
Right. So they just have they have overlapping leaf bases. So like some the leaves are thick and they overlap each other. That provides some support. Their cells are like extra enlarged and stuff like that. Right. So palm trees have found another way of kind of doing the same kind of thing. So they don't technically have woody tissue. Right.
Mhm.
I guess that's why maybe like you can't cut down a palm tree and then use it for wood like you would like a palm tree, like a pine tree.
Mhm.
All right. So now we're going to talk about how do plants respond to the environment, right? So plants they're always responding, right? They see sunlight, right? We talked about seeds, right? Oh, if the soil is the right condition, there's enough water, they come out to grow. If it senses that there's light, the first leaves come out, stuff like that, right? Plants are always responding to the environment, right? So when a plant grows towards or away from a stimulus, that's called a tropism, right? So the first word tropism just means that plants are responding to something and growing towards or away from something. So we're going to look at some different examples of tropisms. So the first one is called phototropism. All right. So Anas, what do you think this means? What does phototropism mean? Like what's going on here? So the plant is responding to something, right? Anas, are you here?
Anas.
Oh, I was saying that like they get like attracted to the sun and they start going towards that way to get like more sunlight.
Exactly right. So photo means like light, right? And
Yes.
tropism means growing towards. So this picture on the left is showing that these plants have figured out, there's light coming through this small window, so they're all trying to grow towards that window, right? So this is called phototropism, right? So how does that happen? What happens to this this hormone called auxin, okay, AUXIN. So normally, like this shoot is like growing, up, okay, and there's auxin being produced on both sides, okay. Now, when sunlight hits one side, what does it do? It causes auxin to stop on that side. So what happens? The other side keeps growing because of the auxin, but that side, doesn't grow. And so what happens? The plant starts to curve because one side is growing more than the other side, and so the plant starts to bend towards the light. Okay. So here's what's happening.
Around the shoot.
Right.
Okay, I see.
Right? Does that make sense? Right.
So what exactly are auxins? Are they like some sort of like cells or something that like?
So auxin is kind of a hormone. It's a chemical inside the plant cells.
Oh, okay.
Right. So it's a chemical, and so basically when sunlight hits so auxin causes something to elongate or to grow.
Oh.
So
okay.
when sunlight hits one side, right, it stops the auxin on that side, so that side doesn't grow, but the other side is growing still, and so it starts to bend towards the sunlight.
Sunlight. That's cool.
All right. So this is called phototropism. All right. So Fariha, what do you think is going on?
Okay, that's not a real picture, right, brother?
No, this is a real picture.
No way.
All right. So Fariha, can you figure out what's going on here? This is another kind of tropism. Let's call it gravitropism. So what's going on here? Can you describe and explain what's going on here?
So the teapot fell, but the plant still grew right up because of, I guess, gravity.
Exactly, right? So in the beginning, the pot was, sitting right side up. So the plant was just growing up. But then the pot fell over. And so now the plant was now sideways, right? But the plant sensed, hey, now I don't want to keep going sideways. I want to go up. So it changed direction, and now it's going up. Right? So this is called gravitropism. Right? So plants can sense gravity. That's why the roots go down, and the leaves go up. Right? So it's called gravitropism. All right. So Yusuf, what do you think?
Wait, what's it called? What's it called, brother? It's called gravitropism.
Yeah, gravitropism.
How does it happen?
So the plants, I don't know how, the exact mechanism, the hormones, but the plant senses gravity.
It senses gravity.
Oh yeah, I think I remember reading about this like a long, long time ago. There's like certain, so I think within plant cells, right? There's like plant cells have cells have mostly water, right? So I don't remember exactly. Maybe I'll bring it for next time. I'll try to bring it for next time. Let me write it down. I remember reading about like some things. I know they can sense gravity because, because the cell is mostly water. Like some chemicals or some substances, they fall towards the bottom, right?
Oh, because of gravitational pull.
Yeah, because of gravity. So then, whatever that hormone does, it does more of it at the bottom and less of it at the top.
Oh, okay.
So I remember reading something about that like a long time ago, but I don't remember if that had to do with plants or animals or what it was about. So I'll try to look that up.
Okay.
Now, this one is called thigmotropism. So, Yusuf, what do you think is going on here? Thigmotropism.
The plant. I guess the plant is.
Wait a second. So,
Yeah, I don't know. Honestly, I don't know this one.
so
It starts like growing on stuff and starts wrapping around itself.
right. So, have you ever seen like vines? Like they put out they put out these random strings, and then sometimes someplace they sense, oh, there's something here. They starts wrapping around it. So why could that be? Why could that be important?
Wait.
They
What
probably
do you mean? What does it sense that it could be?
like nutrients and stuff.
They take nutrients from the ground, not from
So
random
not
sticks
so
and
much nutrients, but they're sensing something else.
They're just sensing something.
So this is basically that the plant has a sense of touch. So when it wraps around, it knows that hey, there's support there that I can grow on.
Oh, okay,
Right?
okay.
That's why when you have like a vine, some kind of like squash vine or some grapevine, right? They don't just fall on the ground. When they send out these little I don't remember what these are called, but when they send these things out and they wrap around something, they're, oh, there's some support here. Let me grow towards that way. All right, so they can stay on the support and grow up. All right, so this is called thigmotropism. All right, now this is called ethylene. All right, so Freya, do you know what this chemical ethylene is used for? What is this picture showing here?
To color or to regulate?
To give color, okay, something like that. So one is no
No.
ethylene, right? Ethylene, right? Yusuf, what do you think? What do you think ethylene is used for?
I think ethylene is. I guess they probably use it in like what's it called? Growth hormones and stuff like plants, where
Yes.
they
Mhm.
sort of ripen it faster, like an enzyme.
Right things right.
Right. So exactly right. So to make things ripe. So basically, like,
Yeah.
so like let's suppose you pick. So a lot of people they use this now. So this hormone, it's a
Yeah.
chemical, but I think it acts as a hormone. It causes things to ripen. Right.
Faster,
Right. So sometimes they do this artificially.
artificially. Yes,
So
that's what I'm saying. Like they inject it into the plant or something.
they surround it. It's like a gas. So
Oh,
they
okay.
surround the plant with it. So Anna, so why do you think why do you think, people might use ethylene gas to ripen things? Like what's the purpose of that?
Faster growth.
It could be faster growth. Another thing is that, usually it takes time to go from the farm to the grocery store, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you pick it ripe on the farm, it's going to be all rotten by the time it gets to the store, right? So what they do is they
Yeah.
pick it, and then maybe like halfway along the way, they start putting in ethylene gas to ripen it so that by the time it gets to the store, then it's ripe and it's ready. So it doesn't ripen too fast. So they pick a lot of fruits and vegetables. What they do is they pick it unripe, and then on the way, then they ripen it by
Okay.
injecting ethylene gas into the area. All right. So then by the time it gets to the store, then it's ripe. So it doesn't get ripe too early, so that it's rotten by the time it gets to the store. So they do that a lot for these kinds of things, right? All right, now let's talk about a couple of different plant hormones. So we talked about auxins before, so we're not going to mention that again. We already looked at auxins. So cytokinins, the second one, all right, this promotes cell division and slows down the natural aging process of plants. So cytokinins are important in growth, all right? Now, I'm going to show some pictures for the other ones. So we have gibberellins. So gibberellins are used for a lot of different kinds of things. So it says here over 100 different gibberellins have been identified. And so what do? They're important in stem elongation. This hormone makes stems longer, promotes seed germination, promotes fruit growth. Right? So a lot of farmers, they use these kinds of things for a lot of different kinds of things. Right? So mentions here, gibberellins are growth promoting hormones. They induce 3 important responses in plants. They stimulate seed growth and start germination, right? So sometimes, farmers, they want to make sure that, they've timed everything out. So they want to make sure certain seeds are germinating at the right time. So they artificially put in this gibberellin to start the seed's germination. They stimulate the buds of flowers to open, and they stimulate growth in plant stems to make stems grow longer, right? So they have these 3 important effects. So like farmers, they usually use stuff like this. All right. Now what about this one? This is another hormone, abscisic acid. Right? This is a growth inhibitor. Right? So, but the thing the lesson mentions is that it promotes stomatal closing during drought stress. So Anas, what does that mean? This hormone, it promotes stomatal closing during drought stress. So explain, what does that mean? Why is that important? What is the purpose of doing that? So stomatal closing, what is that?
Can I
Just a second. All right, Anas, are you there?
Yeah.
All right,
Like,
so what does that mean? Stomatal closing during drought stress.
um. Uh,
So
I don't know.
not sure. What is a stomata? Do you know what is a stomata?
They're like Microsoft like pores on like the leaf.
Okay, so Fariha, so these are microscopic pores. So what's going on here?
So are there like too many of them?
To store water for the plants.
So they're tiny holes and water can escape, right?
Oh yeah.
So, yeah, so go ahead and explain
when
Fariha.
so when there's a drought, if they close, then they wouldn't suffer from the drought stress.
Right. So when there's a drought, right, obviously they're not getting enough water. So sometimes you want to make sure the stomata is closed so that you're not losing too much water as water vapor through those holes in the leaves, right? So the stomata is usually where the oxygen and carbon dioxide, they're coming in and out for photosynthesis, okay? But also water vapor is also lost through that, right? Water vapor evaporates through it. So if you have too much of that, that's bad, especially during a drought, right? So that's why during a drought, this closes, right? The stomata closes. So this this hormone helps to do that, all right? And I think that's it. I think that's it for this lesson, all right? So we'll stop there for today because I think the next class is starting for you guys. I think you guys have Quran class, right?
Yes.
All right.